The first time I saw her, I thought she was defective. There she sat, this tiny human female, hunched over her nutrient paste in the academy cafeteria like some kind of broken doll. Her hair was this weird auburn color that caught the artificial light in strange ways, and she had these pale green eyes that seemed to look right through everything. The other species gave her a wide berth, which was smart, considering what planet she came from. The nightmare world. The place where everything tried to kill you, including the weather. Look at that thing, Vex 9 hissed through his breathing apparatus, his forearms gesturing dismissively at the human girl. Just sitting there like it owns the place. I adjusted my translation device and nodded. Vex 9 was from Kelthara Prime, a civilized world where the most dangerous creature was a fruit that gave you mild indigestion. He had every right to be concerned about a Terran in our midst. Her name is Maya Sterling, I said, reading from my datapad. Age 17 standard cycles. Academic scores are, actually, quite impressive. Impressive? Vex 9's eye stalk swiveled toward me in disbelief. It's from a Class 12 Deathworld. Those creatures probably eat plasma for breakfast. The girl, Maya, continued eating her nutrient paste with mechanical precision. She never looked up, never acknowledged the whispers, never seemed to notice that half the cafeteria was watching her with the kind of morbid fascination usually reserved for a particularly venomous exhibit at the zoo. She seems harmless enough, I offered, though I kept my voice low. You never knew with humans. They had this reputation for explosive behavior. That's when the Corvin delegation decided to make their move. Now, I should mention that the Corvins were the Academy's unofficial bullies. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, had muscles like industrial cables, and their homeworld had gravity that would crush most other species. They'd been terrorizing the student body for months, and the administration seemed powerless to stop them. Their leader, a particularly nasty specimen named Gorth Khan, approached Maya's table with the swagger of someone who had never met real resistance. His 2 lieutenants flanked him, their heavy footsteps making the floor vibrate. Well, Gorth Khan rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. Look what we have here. A little Deathworlder all alone. Maya didn't look up from her meal. She just kept eating, one spoonful at a time, as if the 3-meter-tall alien hadn't just positioned himself directly in front of her table. I'm talking to you, freak, Gorth Khan continued, his voice rising. Don't you know it's rude to ignore your betters? Still nothing. Maya took another bite of her nutrient paste, chewed thoughtfully, swallowed. Vex 9 grabbed my arm with 2 of his hands. We should leave, he whispered urgently. This is about to get messy. But I couldn't look away. There was something about the human girl's complete stillness that was more unnerving than any display of aggression would have been. She sat there like a statue, except for the steady rhythm of her eating. Gorth Khan's patience, never his strong suit, finally snapped. He slammed one massive fist onto the table, making the dishes jump. Look at me. Maya finished chewing, swallowed, and slowly raised her head. Those pale green eyes met the Corvin's glare with the kind of calm that preceded hurricanes. Can I help you? She asked, her voice soft and perfectly polite. The entire cafeteria went silent. Even the serving drones seemed to pause in their mechanical routines. Gorth Khan leaned forward, putting his face uncomfortably close to hers. You can start by showing some respect. Do you know who I am? No, Maya replied, her tone still conversational. Should I? One of the lieutenants, a slightly smaller Corvin named Thek Moore, laughed. She's got nerve, I'll give her that. Stupid, but nerve. I am Gorth Khan, the leader announced, as if his name should mean something. Champion of the Corvin Collegiate Fighting Circuit. I've crushed opponents twice your size without breaking a sweat. Maya nodded slowly, as if filing this information away for later use. That's nice. Nice? Gorth Khan's voice rose an octave. Nice? Do you have any idea what I could do to you, little human? Probably lots of things, Maya agreed, taking another spoonful of her meal. But you won't. Boys, the Corvin's face flushed purple with rage. And what makes you so sure of that? Maya smiled then, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Not because it was threatening or aggressive, but because it was genuinely friendly. The kind of smile you'd give to a child who'd just said something adorable. Because, she said, her voice still soft and reasonable, you're not actually stupid enough to assault a human in front of 300 witnesses. Watch me, Gorth Khan snarled, reaching for her with one massive hand. What happened next defied every law of physics I thought I understood. Maya didn't stand up. She didn't even put down her spoon. One moment she was sitting there, looking like the most harmless creature in the known galaxy, and the next moment Gorth Khan was on the floor, his neck bent at an angle that was definitely not natural. The sound it made was like a tree branch snapping in a windstorm. Sharp, final, and somehow very wet. Oh, Maya said, looking down at the twitching body with mild concern. I think I broke him. Thickmore stared at his fallen leader, then at the human girl, then back at the body. You killed him. Did I? Maya examined her spoon as if it might hold the answer. I was just trying to get him to stop reaching for me. Humans don't like being grabbed by strangers. The third Corvin, whose name I never learned, made a sound that might have been a whimper. He's dead. Gorth Khan is dead. Maya looked genuinely surprised. Really? I thought you guys were supposed to be tough. She went back to eating her nutrient paste as if nothing had happened. The cafeteria remained frozen in absolute silence, 300 beings trying to process what they'd just witnessed. She barely moved, Vex 9 whispered, his voice shaking. I was watching the whole time, and she barely moved. It was true. From my angle I'd seen her hand come up in what looked like a lazy swatting motion, making contact with Gorth Khan's wrist. There'd been a brief twist, a step that she'd somehow managed while still sitting down, and then the biggest, meanest bully in the academy was decorating the floor. Excuse me, Maya said, addressing the remaining Corvins with the same polite tone she'd been using all along. You're standing in front of the condiment dispenser. Could you move, please? Thickmore and his companion looked at each other, then at their dead leader, then at the small human girl who had apparently just committed casual murder with a flick of her wrist. They ran. Not walked quickly, not retreated with dignity. They ran, their heavy footsteps echoing through the cafeteria like thunder, and I swear I heard one of them crying. Maya stood up, stepped carefully around Gorth Khan's body, and walked to the condiment dispenser. She selected something that looked like synthetic pepper, returned to her seat, and sprinkled it over her nutrient paste. Much better, she said to no one in particular, and continued eating. The silence stretched on until it became actively uncomfortable. Finally, one of the medical drones arrived, took one look at the scene, and immediately called for backup. Excuse me, sentient being, the drone said, its voice carrying that artificially cheerful tone that all service units used. There appears to be a deceased individual in this dining facility. Are you able to provide any information regarding the circumstances of this individual's current state? Maya looked up from her meal, chewing thoughtfully. He tried to grab me, she said after swallowing. I defended myself. I see. Self-defense protocol recognized. Please remain available for questioning by security personnel. Of course, Maya replied, as if being questioned about a death was the most normal thing in the world. The drone began scanning Gorth Khan's body, its sensors whirring and clicking. The cause of death appears to be severe cervical trauma resulting in immediate neurological shutdown. Time of death, approximately 3 minutes ago. Estimated force required to achieve this level of damage. The drone paused, its processors clearly struggling. Error. Calculations do not match available data. Maya raised her hand like a student in class. I can help with that. The drone's optical sensors focused on her. Please elaborate. He was reaching for me with his right hand. I redirected his momentum using his own body weight, applied rotational force to his cervical vertebrae, and his neck snapped. Basic physics, really. The drone made a series of beeps that sounded distinctly confused. Scanning subject for enhancement implants or artificial augmentation. You won't find any, Maya said helpfully. I'm completely natural. Well, it is unlikely. The force required to achieve the observed damage would necessitate significant artificial enhancement. Maya shrugged. I'm from Earth. We're built different. That's when it hit me. Earth, Terra, the death world where everything, including the sapient species, was designed by nature to be an efficient killing machine. By the void I breathed, finally understanding. She's not defective. She's operating normally. Vex 9 looked at me with all four of his eyes. What do you mean? Think about it, I said, watching Maya calmly finish her meal while medical drones swarmed around the corpse. She's from a planet where the gravity is nearly twice galactic standard, where the weather can kill you, where the native fauna includes creatures that hunt in packs and have teeth designed for tearing through bone. So? So what would that kind of environment do to a species over millions of years of evolution? I felt a chill run down my spine. They'd become living weapons. Every single one of them. Maya stood up, collected her tray, and walked to the disposal unit. She moved with the same casual grace she'd shown throughout the entire incident, as if casually murdering the Academy's biggest bully was just another Tuesday for her. Have a good day, she said to the medical drones, and walked out of the cafeteria. The silence that followed was deafening. 300 beings, representing dozens of species from across the galaxy, all trying to process what they'd just witnessed. She smiled, Vex 9 said finally. After she killed him, she smiled. I don't think she meant it as a threat, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. I think she was just being polite. Polite? Vex 9's eye stalk swiveled toward me in disbelief. She murdered someone and then asked for condiments. Well, I said, watching the cleaning drones begin their grim work, she did say please. The next few hours were chaos. Security arrived, questioned everyone, reviewed the surveillance footage, and ultimately concluded that Maya Sterling had acted in self-defense. The footage was clear. Gorth Khan had made the first aggressive move, and Maya had simply responded to protect herself. Of course, the footage also showed that she'd done it without standing up, without raising her voice, and without even putting down her spoon. But somehow, that wasn't considered relevant to the investigation. The case closed. The security chief announced, the deceased initiated physical contact without consent. The defendant responded with appropriate force. Appropriate force. Right. Word spread through the academy like wildfire. By evening, everyone knew about the human girl who had killed Gorth Khan with a casual gesture. The stories grew in the telling, as stories always do, but the basic facts remained unchanged. Maya Sterling was not someone you wanted to antagonize. The next morning, I arrived at the cafeteria to find it mostly empty. A few brave souls sat at tables near the exits, but the center of the room, where Maya usually sat, was completely deserted. Except for Maya herself, of course. She sat in exactly the same spot, eating the same bland nutrient paste, completely alone. She didn't seem bothered by the isolation. If anything, she looked more relaxed than she had the day before. You're staring, she said without looking up. I jumped, nearly dropping my tray. Sorry. I didn't mean to. It's fine, she said, taking another bite. Everyone's been staring. You're just the first one to get close enough for me to comment on it. I stood there awkwardly, unsure whether to run or attempt conversation. Maya made the decision for me. You can sit if you want, she said, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. I promise not to kill you. The way she said it, with that same polite, conversational tone, made it somehow more unsettling than if she'd been threatening. Are you sure? I asked, then immediately regretted it. I mean, I don't want to impose. Maya looked up at me then, and I saw something in those pale green eyes that I hadn't noticed before. Loneliness. Deep, profound loneliness. Please, she said, and for the first time her voice carried real emotion. I'd like the company. So I sat down, ignoring the terrified looks from the other students, and prepared to have lunch with the most dangerous being in the academy. I'm Keck 7, I said, adjusting my translation device. From Helios Beta. Maya, she replied, though she already knew I knew her name. Nice to meet you. We ate in silence for a while, the weight of yesterday's events hanging between us like a physical presence. Can I ask you something? I said finally. Sure. What was Terry? Did you mean to kill him? Maya paused, her spoon halfway to her mouth. She considered the question with the same careful attention she'd given everything else. No, she said finally. I just wanted him to stop reaching for me. But I'm not surprised he died. Not surprised? Corvins have weak neck structures compared to their body mass, she explained matter-of-factly. It's a design flaw. Too much weight supported by too few vertebrae. I knew there was a risk when I deflected his grab. But you did it anyway. Maya's smile returned, that same friendly, terrifying expression. He shouldn't have reached for me. And somehow, in that moment, I understood. Maya Sterling wasn't a monster. She wasn't even particularly violent. She was just human. And humans, apparently, came with a very different set of baseline assumptions about personal space and appropriate responses to threats. Where I come from, she continued, you don't touch people without permission. Ever. It's considered extremely rude. And the penalty for being rude is death? If you're stupid enough to be rude to someone who can kill you, then yes. Maya took another bite of her nutrient paste, natural selection at work. I stared at her, trying to process the casual way she discussed murder as an evolutionary mechanism. You're scared of me, she observed. Terrified, I admitted. Good, she said, and that smile got a little wider. Fear keeps you alive. My species learned that a long time ago. The next few days passed in an uneasy quiet. Maya continued her routine of sitting alone, eating her nutrient paste, and occasionally answering questions from nervous faculty members about the incident. The Corvan delegation had filed an official complaint demanding justice for their fallen champion, but the Academy's legal department had dismissed it faster than a hyperdrive malfunction. Self-defense is a recognized right under Galactic Education Code, Dean Morthak had announced during the emergency assembly. The deceased individual initiated unwanted physical contact. The response, while excessive, was within legal parameters. Excessive. That was the word everyone kept using, as if Maya had simply used a bigger hammer than necessary to swat a fly. I found myself eating lunch with her regularly now, partly out of curiosity and partly because I was apparently the only student brave enough to sit within 10 meters of her. She was actually quite pleasant company, once you got past the whole casual murder thing. You know, I said one afternoon, pushing my algae protein around my plate, I've been thinking about what you said. It's about natural selection. Maya looked up from her meal, those pale green eyes focusing on me with unsettling intensity. What about it? On your world, do all humans have your abilities? She laughed, a sound that was both musical and somehow predatory. My abilities? Keck 7, I'm barely average by human standards. I'm 17 years old, I've never had military training, and I spend most of my time studying xenobiology. Barely average, I repeated, feeling my stomach drop. You killed a 3-meter-tall warrior without standing up, and you're barely average. Gorth Khan was big, but he was clumsy, no real combat experience, just brute force and intimidation. Maya took another bite of her nutrient paste. That's where I come from. He wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes in a schoolyard fight. Your schoolyards involve mortal combat? Not usually, she said thoughtfully, but kids can be mean. And human kids, she shrugged. Well, we're still human. Before I could ask what that meant, the cafeteria's main doors burst open with a sound like thunder. The entire Corvan delegation marched in, but these weren't the Academy students I'd seen before. These were adults, wearing the ceremonial armor of their homeworld's military caste. Oh, Maya said, setting down her spoon. This should be interesting. The leader was massive, even by Corvan standards. Nearly 4 meters tall, with scars covering his arms and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite by someone with anger management issues. His armor was black metal inscribed with symbols that probably meant something intimidating in their language. I am War Chief Khan Thak, he announced, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent cafeteria, a brother to the fallen Gorth Khan. I come seeking the one who murdered my bloodkin. Every eye in the room turned to Maya, who was calmly wiping her mouth with a napkin. That would be me, she said, raising her hand like she was answering a question in class. War Chief Khan Thak's gaze fixed on her, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. You are the human whelp who killed my brother? I am, Maya confirmed, standing up for the first time since I'd known her. Even at her full height, she barely came up to the Corvin's chest. Oh, I should point out that he died because he tried to grab me without permission. I was defending myself. Lies. Khan Thak roared, spittle flying from his mouth. My brother was a warrior. He would never fall to a pathetic creature like you. Maya tilted her head, considering this. Have you reviewed the security footage? Footage can be altered. Humans are known for their deception. The war chief stepped closer, his massive frame casting a shadow over Maya's table. I challenge you to honorable combat. If you are truly responsible for my brother's death, face me as a warrior. I really don't think that's a good idea, Maya said, her voice taking on that polite, reasonable tone that I'd learned to fear. Are you refusing? Do humans have no honor? Maya's smile returned, and I felt every survival instinct I'd evolved over millions of years start screaming at me to run. I'm not refusing, she said sweetly. I'm trying to save your life. But if you insist. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device that looked like a communicator. Mom? Hi, it's Maya. I'm fine, thanks for asking. Listen, I'm about to kill someone, and I wanted to let you know before the academy calls you. The entire cafeteria could hear the voice that came through the device, tinged with that same casual politeness that Maya used. Again, sweetheart? What did they do this time? Same thing as last time. Big alien tried to intimidate me, I defended myself, now his relatives want revenge. Maya examined her fingernails as if this was the most boring conversation in the galaxy. This one's about 4 meters tall, probably weighs twice what the last one did. Oh, is that all? I thought you were going to say it was something dangerous. Just remember what your father taught you about leverage points, and try not to make too much of a mess. I'll do my best, Mom. Love you. Love you too, dear. Call me when you're done. Maya put the communicator away and turned her attention back to War Chief Khan Thak, who was staring at her with the kind of expression usually reserved for natural disasters. She talks about killing people like it's a hobby, Vex 9 whispered from somewhere behind me. Your mother approves of murder? Khan Thak asked, his voice uncertain for the first time. She approves of me defending myself, Maya corrected. Though to be fair, she's killed more people than I have, so she's probably not the best judge of these things. More people than you have? I couldn't help but ask. Mom was a colonial security officer before she became a xenobiologist, Maya explained. She's got a confirmed kill count in the hundreds. Dad's numbers are classified, but he used to work for something called Special Operations before he became a teacher. War Chief Khan Thak took a step back, his massive hands flexing nervously. Your parents are warriors? Not exactly. Mom studies alien diseases and Dad teaches literature to middle school students. Maya stretched, her joints popping in a way that sounded like small explosions. But they're both human, so they're capable of violence when necessary. All humans are capable of violence, Khan Thak said, though he sounded less confident than before. Oh, absolutely. But most of us prefer not to use it unless we have to. Maya began walking toward the center of the cafeteria, her movements fluid and predatory. The thing is, you're making it necessary. I am War Chief Khan Thak. I have killed enemies in 17 different star systems. I have conquered planets. That's nice, Maya said, that same polite tone she'd used with his brother. I'm sure your enemies were very impressed. The war chief drew what looked like a vibro blade from his armor, the weapon humming with barely contained energy. I will avenge my brother's death. No, Maya said simply. You won't. What happened next was unlike anything I'd ever witnessed. War Chief Konthek charged forward with a roar that shook the walls, his massive blade raised high above his head. He was fast for something his size, faster than should have been possible. Maya was faster. She didn't run toward him or away from him. She simply stepped aside at the last possible moment, her hand coming up to tap the flat of his blade as it passed. The vibro weapon went spinning away, embedding itself in the far wall with a sound like a meteor strike. Konthek stumbled, his momentum carrying him past his target, and Maya was suddenly behind him. Her hand touched the back of his neck, fingers finding some spot that made the massive alien go rigid. Nerve cluster, she explained to the frozen war chief. Humans mapped the nervous systems of most galactic species about 50 years ago. Standard colonial security training. You cannot, Konthek gasped, his voice strained. I can do whatever I want, Maya said, her voice still conversational. That's the problem with challenging a human to combat. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. She pressed a little harder, and the war chief's legs gave out. He crashed to the floor like a falling building, his armor clattering against the tiles. The thing about your brother, Maya continued, walking around to face the fallen warrior, is that he thought size and strength were all that mattered. So do you. But humans learned a long time ago that the biggest predator isn't always the most dangerous one. Konthek tried to speak, but only managed a strangled wheeze. I could kill you right now, Maya said, crouching down to meet his eyes. One little twist, and your spinal cord would snap like a twig. But I won't, because unlike your brother, you haven't actually tried to put your hands on me. She stood up, brushing imaginary dust from her jacket. Instead, I'm going to make you a deal. You and your people leave this academy and never come back. In exchange, I won't tell the Galactic Council that the mighty Corvan military just got defeated by a teenage girl who was trying not to break a sweat. The paralysis seemed to be wearing off, because Konthek managed to push himself to his hands and knees. This is not over. Yes, it is, Maya said firmly. Because if you or any other Corvan shows up here looking for trouble, I won't be as gentle next time. She walked back to her table, sat down and resumed eating her nutrient paste as if nothing had happened. The war chief Konthek struggled to his feet, retrieved his weapon from the wall, and limped out of the cafeteria without another word. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the service drones seemed to have powered down. Well, Maya said finally, that was fun. Fun? I managed to croak. I got to practice some of the combat techniques Dad taught me. Plus, I didn't have to kill anyone this time. She smiled at me, and I realized that this was what passed for a good day in Maya Sterling's world. Want to get dessert? I stared at her, this small human girl who had just humiliated a decorated war chief without breaking stride, and realized that I was probably witnessing something historic. A first contact with a species that had evolved beyond our understanding of what sapient life could be. Maya, I said slowly, what exactly is Earth like? She paused, her spoon halfway to her mouth, and for a moment her expression became distant. Beautiful, she said finally. Dangerous but beautiful. The sunsets are amazing, the oceans are vast and deep, and the mountains touch the sky. The wildlife is incredible, the weather keeps you on your toes, and every day is an adventure. And the people? They're exactly what you'd expect from a species that evolved in paradise. Maya's smile turned wistful. We're protective of what we love, loyal to our friends, and absolutely ruthless to our enemies. We build amazing things, we tell wonderful stories, and we never, ever give up. That sounds terrifying, Maya suggested helpfully. I was going to say incredible, I admitted. It's both, she said. That's what makes us human. As I sat there, sharing dessert with the most dangerous being in the academy, I realized that the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Humans weren't just another species to be cataloged and studied. They were something new, something unprecedented. They were survivors from a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years, and they had not only survived but thrived. They had turned their planet's attempts at genocide into a training program, and now they were spreading across the stars with the casual confidence of apex predators. And Maya Sterling, this quiet girl with her polite smile and her casual attitude toward violence, was probably one of the gentler examples of her species. Keck 7, Maya said, interrupting my thoughts. You've gone very quiet. Just thinking, I said. About what? Not about how the galaxy is going to change now that humans are part of it. Maya's smile became genuinely warm. It's going to be interesting, that's for sure. And somehow, despite everything I'd witnessed, I found myself looking forward to it.